How's it going, folks? Stu here. The London Film Festival train, it keeps on a-chugging, and this time we're stopping for Joanna Hogg's latest film, which is a sequel to her previous film, The Souvenir, called, you guessed it, The Souvenir Part 2. Thrilling title. I feel like it's a bit of a strange occurrence to get a sequel to an art house indie darling, but here we are, and look, maybe we're going to get a Joanna Hogg cinematic universe or something. 10 years down the line, I might be sat here doing a review for fucking The Souvenir Endgame or something, in which various different Swintons have terrible times with terrible men. That would actually be incredible. We need to get this made. So The Souvenir Part 2, as I've just said, is the second part, you guessed it, of Joanna Hogg's previous film, The Souvenir, which was a sort of cine-memoir loosely based on her experiences going through film school and with a relationship which she happened to have as she went through film school. So I was very interested to see what Joanna Hogg would do with the second one, because the first one does itself feel like a very contained piece. It works really well as a look at this relationship. I wasn't really sure where it would be going with the second one. I feel like I should quickly butt in and say, like, I'm gonna have to talk about the end of the first Souvenir and what happened in that in the context of this review. So if you haven't seen the first Souvenir, stop this review and go watch it. Why would you be even watching a review for the second part of two films that you haven't seen the first one for, you maniac? Get out of here. But The Souvenir Part 2 really wonderfully carries on the story that is established by Hogg in the first one, and also takes it in very different, new, unexpected and surprising directions, which I was really happy to see. I had a really great time with this one. I thought it was a fantastic sequel. The first one ended, obviously, with tragedy in Tony passing away after his heroin addiction spirals and sees him going a little bit more out of control. And this one picks up almost immediately after that in terms of where Julie is in that grieving process. We immediately meet her at the beginning of this film as she's going back to her parents after all the shit that happened in the first one. It's an obviously very sort of stark and sad opening, but Joanna Hogg takes us on this grieving process with Julie through the film, and we see her basically sort of turn her attention back to film and this project that she's doing at her film school for graduation, which she uses as a way of processing the stuff that she went through in the first film. And so The Souvenir Part 2 ends up becoming this really interesting sort of meta-analysis on the grieving process, but also on the creative process and bringing yourself to your creative projects and the benefits and, I guess, the problems that arise from that. And I love that avenue. I just didn't expect to see that in this film. When it gets going, I kind of thought it was just going to be sad, mopey Julie for the film, which, you know, I wouldn't have not enjoyed because I like the Swintons and I'll watch that happen for as many hours I need to happen. But I was very happy to see this one take much more of a dive into the sort of filmmaking process, and actually you start to see much more of the film that Julie's making within the film, and Joanna Hogg ends up doing much more interesting stuff with this idea of kind of memories and reflecting on your own situation retrospectively, and I love that. In that sense, this one is much more of a kind of, I guess, kind of creative story, where the first one was much more, I suppose, relationship driven, and I really enjoyed that shift in perspective, and I thought she pulls it off really, really well. This is another brilliantly directed film from Hogg. There's more abstract sequences in here, which I'm always a big fan of, and by the end of this one I found it to be much more moving and poignant than the first one, and that's helped along the way by brilliant performances from the Swintons TM, who I'm calling them that from now on. They're now a duo. You guys know I love Tilda Swinton, and what does Tilda Swinton do in this film? Say it with me, everyone. Crushes it. That's one of the aspects I love getting more of in this film than the first. We get a bit more of Tilda Swinton's character, or rather we get to see a bit more of the relationship between mother and daughter. But in a similar way, I loved Honor Swinton-Byrne's performance more here than the first one as well. I mean, I thought she was great in the first one, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's because we've already obviously established with the character we know what we're getting at this point, or whether it's because she as an actress has had time with this character before, but she just feels much more at home in the character. She spends a lot of the first one opposite Tom Burke, and this one, I think she's almost sort of freed from that relationship, and so it's engaging and interesting seeing her character and performance sort of branch out and do bigger, broader things. Also want to give a special shout out again to Richard Ayoade, who pops up again in this one, but a little bit more, and I just enjoyed getting more Richard Ayoade. I'm never going to complain about that. I will say some of the problems that I had with the first one are still here, and I have come to realize that I think that's just sort of a part of Joanna Hogg's style that maybe doesn't always click with me. Sometimes things are quite overt or signposted quite obviously when I'd rather they were a little bit more subtle. It can sometimes feel a little bit obvious in that kind of film student-y film way. But that does kind of work because much more so in this one, we are watching literal film students make a film. So it doesn't necessarily ever suck me out of the film too much. But I did find that for all the sequences and moments that I found to be really sort of abstract and absorbing and rich thematically, where it made me feel things and think things, there were also sequences which just sort of said things a bit too obviously for me. But at the end of the day, this was another fantastic and different addition to the Souvenir. I'm not going to call it, don't call it a franchise, Stu. 2021 got me calling everything that's got more than one film a franchise. But I love that I could sit here and look at these two films and get something different from each of them. But they both complement each other really, really well. And they're both in dialogue with each other in a really interesting way. I had a really great time with it. It moved me, it made me laugh, made the entire press audience gasp at one point. Not quite as dramatic as it sounds. Someone's pottery gets smashed in the film. And people it was the most British thing I've ever seen. But what about you guys? Did you manage to catch the Souvenir Part 2 at the London Film Festival this year? Are you excited to check it out? I think it's out soon in UK cinemas, but I'm going to be honest, I've no idea. Too many films, too many release dates to keep up on at the moment, so it's coming out at some point. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments down below. We'll have a little chat. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. Loads more reviews to come from the festival. I'll see you soon for some more thoughts and more films, but until next time, how do I become a can I become an honorary Swinton and just be in their lives forever, please? Can someone make this happen?